for the city manager.
August 14th, 2019.
Morning. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Clark, my fellow commissioners, City Manager Madrid, our clerk Renee Canton, I would like to welcome all of you this morning to our meeting of Wednesday, August 14th, 2019. It is now 9 a.m. I will call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Here.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Here.
Honorable Ralph Eschler.
Present.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Here.
Honorable George Sacchetti.
Here.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is silent meditation. I would like for you all to remember all of our victims that have been lost in the tragedies in the last couple of weeks, not only in El Paso, in Ohio, but around the world. Keep everyone in your thoughts and prayers. Also, our children, our local children started school this week. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers that they have a good, safe, and healthy school year. Please join me in 15 seconds of silent meditation. Thank you. Commissioner Clark, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item B4, the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mayor Whitehead, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for August 24th, 2019, with the exception of the removal of number 5 under new business, H5.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Wait, hold on. Okay, so you're pulling 5?
We're pulling H5, which is,
No, I understand what it is.
Okay.
I would also like to, Madam Mayor, if it's okay, unfinished business. I would have preferred a discussion action on G.
a discussion action.
So if we can all think about that one and put that maybe on the next agenda. So can we pull G1 and H5?
G1 and H5. Do I have a second on that motion?
Okay.
I have a motion and a second to remove G1 and H5. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item C, comments from the public. Reminder, I would ask that each person wishing to give public comment would approach the podium. Any documentation be put in the black box next to the podium there. Give your name and your address, and remember a 3-minute rule. Thank you. Do I have any public comment this morning?
Good morning, Mrs. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Denise Addy, Caballo, New Mexico. I'm here today just to publicly and officially invite each and every one of you to the 9/11 Memorial event, which will be on Wednesday, September 11th. I know that is your commission meeting, and hopefully you guys can either make that a short meeting so that all of you guys can attend, or maybe cancel it and do it the following Wednesday. But anyway, I would like for all of you guys to attend. You may have to put a little public announcement in the newspaper so that in case there is a quorum of you guys. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Okay, the next person on our public comment list this morning is Andy Underwood.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Andy Underwood, and I own property at the intersection of Foch and Main. My property was directly affected by the loss of the parking spaces a couple of weeks ago, and I'm encouraged that that happened. It seems like maybe we're addressing some of the problems with traffic downtown. I'm not sure that that's the total solution. I think we all go way too fast downtown. I think that a stoplight paired with a lower speed limit would solve the problems at that intersection much more effectively. I've been told that the New Mexico Department of Transportation has said that's not an option, and I'm hoping that possibly they could be asked to look at it again. It's a busy intersection. We have a lot of pedestrian traffic. We have a lot of automobile traffic. Public safety is an issue there. We have Saturday matinees. Kids are crossing the street. The issue of speeding hasn't been dealt with, just line of sight vision at that intersection. I think that a stoplight would ensure better interaction at the intersection because people would know when to go, when not to go. As it is now, even with those empty spaces gone, it's a steep hill. People are going to be doing the famous rolling stop, trying to anticipate traffic. I really think that speeding is the biggest problem that we have downtown. I'd like to see the speed limit at 15 miles an hour. Let everybody slow down and enjoy the downtown area. If people drive by, sometimes they never stop again. I think the busy locations in the downtown area add to our tourist attraction. People like to see what's going on. I'm just hoping that this isn't the end solution, that maybe we can keep working on it. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time. It's nice to be able to do public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. The next person I have is Susan Brandt.
Good morning. I have the business at 412 Main, which is right at the intersection. Because of the trash can and because of the fire hydrant, my business has no parking. So I kind of mooch off of everybody. Because of the parking with the barriers that have gone up, those customers that I have that are handicapped, I just tell them, text us when you're there and we will bring it out to you. My concern is if you leave that there and you do the remodeling on Vogt Street, that's 6 parking spots technically that this area has lost. We've also lost an imaginary parking spot because a lot of the business people that park won't park right up to the barriers because they're afraid of getting blocked in, and then the next person parks, and then you have a half a parking spot there. Everybody here is in business or has some interest in business. We're a small town. We love living in a small town, but we don't want to make it an even smaller town. And I agree with Mr. Underwood and the fact about the light, because I have 2 cameras, one security and one is a marketing thing to see how people react to what I put in my window. Well, in the background is the traffic at that intersection. And a lot of people who are not from TRC will stop at that yellow light. It is the potential of a lot of squeaking brakes, a lot of possible accidents, but it does allow for traffic to kind of brake and slow down and see what's going on. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, and you have a nice day.
Thank you, and you too. The next one on our list is Tom Smith.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning,
Good morning.
Council. This is, I'd just like to take more of a question than it is a comment. My name is Tom Smith. I live at 609 Kruger. And 2 years ago, we got a nice letter from the city and the street department saying they were going to pay from 3rd Street through 7th Street and gave us times and when it was going to happen. Well, that didn't happen. They paved to 6th Street, and there's 1 block between 6th and 7th that's not paved. On that issue, I went down and talked to the street superintendent at that time, and he said, well, we ran out of money, but I'll try to get you maybe some chip seals and stuff, because what happens is now that it's paved from 3rd to 6th, they speed up, and then they hit the hill. And He said, well, doesn't make it better? And I said, no, it makes it worse, because they're coming up that hill real fast, and, or down it or whatever. But, anyway, so then he said, you know, we should have it for the next budget year, we should be all right. Well, didn't hear anything on that, and, I don't know who the street superintendent is, and that's why I'm here today, just to ask a question, if I could have somebody look into that and give me an idea, is that in the budget this year between 6th and 7th Street, the paving of that project? I would like to know. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
The next on our list is Linda DiMarino.
Good morning, Mayor, City Commissioners. Linda DiMarino on behalf of Main Street Truth or Consequences. I noticed that there was a logo possibility change, which I'm very excited about. Our logo is put on every piece of advertising that goes out of here that does lodger's tax. And quite frankly, the logo that we have, that we're using on those, doesn't really do a lot to help us with the marketing of our area. So, I mean, first of all, the real question is there a difference between a city seal and a city logo? And if this seal is going to be continued to be used on marketing materials using lodger's tax, should that seal come out of a marketing branding effort? New Mexico Main Street has experts in lots of different areas, one of them being marketing and branding. They, in Raton, recently met with like a bunch of people from their city and redeveloped their whole branding for Raton, and out of that came things like logos and colors and, you know, all the schematics of that. They would be willing to come down here and help us. I have an email that includes what the scope of work for that can be, and really their work down here would cost us nothing because we are a Main Street community. So what I'm going to be doing is emailing you that proposal and encouraging you, if we are going to use the new logo or seal or what have you on this, that it becomes a product of marketing and branding so that we're achieving all of our goals in marketing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Linda. Do we have any other public comment this morning?
Why not? Morning, Commissioners. Ron Fenn, through 16 North Foch. I have a couple of things that I looked at on the accounts payables and accounts receivables this month, and I'm very dismayed to see that in this diminishing community, we are spending money needlessly. $4,900, well, $4,800 for a trim package on an electric utility pickup truck. Where is the logic? Where is the rationale between a trim package, an XLT trim package on a utility truck? We have more trucks in this city now than we've ever had before. We've got newer trucks everywhere, and the city is diminishing, in spite of what Mr. Szigeti says. Along another front, I have to question why all of a sudden payments to solar producers, large solar producers, has gone from 11.8 cents a kilowatt down to 7.7 cents a kilowatt. That's happened since between now or July and January. At the same time, we're paying residential producers 13.1 cents a kilowatt. And at the same time, the city is undercharging itself for the solar that they buy from SSA number 4. SSA number 4 last month charged us $31,542 for electricity that is only for city use. And the city charged itself only $22,000. That's $9,000 less than what we paid for the electricity. That's cooking the books, in my estimation. That's misfeasance and needs to be stopped. And Mr. Seghetti, since you were never elected by the people of this community, you never received one vote from a person here, you do not represent me, and I resent
Ron,
your comments to me.
Ron.
I
point of
resent,
order.
no,
Point of order.
point of order.
Yes, you do not come in here and harass.
I'm not harassing, I'm saying that he does not represent me. He was your bobblehead, yes, man.
Thank you, Mr. Fenn.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Fenn. Hey, watch your mouth. I apologize for the disruption. Is there any other public comment this morning?
Good morning, Mayor and City Commissioners. Hans Townsend, Chamber and Desert Viewing. Just a quick comment on the logo. If you're really doing a new logo, it would be a good idea to do a competition in the town. You would get a lot of ideas. There are a lot of people around here that have different things. On the xseeds.com website, you'll see lots of logos that have been designed and made, and there are a lot of artistic people in this town. So I think it might be a good idea to do a competition. A, you would get a lot of ideas, and B, you would let people know that it's happening and maybe get some interest in it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Is there any further public comment this morning? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is response to public comment. Is there any response to public comment from the commissioners? Commissioner Clark.
I have a couple of comments I'd like to make, and I'm, having not been here for a couple of months, and I really appreciate my commission understanding. But I would like to make a comment on losing those two parking spots on Main Street. It could be three, yeah, depending on the size of the cars. Several years ago, I was responsible for planting trees downtown, and we wanted to, the sidewalks had already been put in, and it was after the fact that we had to have the city go in and cut holes in the sidewalks.
Kathy, could you get up to the mic, please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Sorry, Mayor. And the Department of Transportation, because they own that property, including the sidewalks on both Main and Broadway, told myself and the other people that were involved, including 4-H from the high school, that we couldn't plant a tree right there on the corner of Main and Foch when you're driving north off of Foch, because it would block traffic. Well, we may have been promised that we would keep that tree trimmed up, and if you all know, that tree you can see through. And if I'm not incorrect, Chief, that's a dangerous corner for my police department. Main and Foch is a dangerous corner for my police department. And one of the things that bothers me is that our town was built in a long time ago, and we were thinking, apparently, back in those days, and I wasn't alive during those days, about parking. And I've heard, being a downtown business person who does have parking, but we have problems on Broadway on the 400 and 500 block also, that there isn't a place, unless you go into Bank of the Southwest, to park. And I think it's sad, and I wish that we had some place where we could have a public parking where people could walk the downtown, and that it would be more negotiable. And I heard what you said, Susan, and I remember when those sidewalks went in and we ended up with 12 and 14-inch curbs was just insane. And I don't know what the answer is, but I do want
you people that have made a comment to know that it does concern me too, that there's not enough parking, and we want to develop our downtown businesses, but we need to have a place for people to be. So thank you for your comments, and I did hear you. I had a conversation with Linda DiMarino the other day about the logo, and I know that it's on our agenda to talk to, but I do want to say, Linda, that I appreciate your comments, and that logo was built in the late 1990s, and it may be something that we want to entirely redo, and it's nice to know that Main Street would be available to help us, whether you're going to be here at the end of this meeting for that discussion or not. But I appreciate your offer for that help. Mr. Sergetti, I really, really have a hard time with listening to people criticize us up here. And I just am very appreciative of your dignity and your honor, and we put you into this place, and we intend to keep you in this place. It was our decision, and that's how the rules read, as far as I know, unless I'm incorrect. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have any further public comment this morning?
I do, and I thank you, Kathy, for that. And I knew when I accepted this position that it came with that target painted on my back, and you know. But then again, I consider the source and judge things that way. On another matter, I mean, and in spite of what Mr. Fenn said at the close of his statement, he did have a point when he mentioned that trim package for that utility truck. Now, you know, and seemingly that could be looked at as a frivolous expense, but I know sometimes when, you know, you're shopping for vehicles and you pick out a particular vehicle, you know, it may come with some features that you may not need and you wind up paying for. That may be the case with this, I don't know. But I can understand why somebody would look at an item like that and have a concern that it might be a frivolous expense. But I kind of trust our staff to be careful with these things. I don't know what the circumstances were around that. But it may be something we should be careful about in the future when we're purchasing vehicles, is, you know, looking at items that we put on these vehicles that we don't really need and wind up paying for. I had another comment. There was a letter to the editor in the paper a week or two ago, and it was about bemoaning the fact that we are limiting public comment to one meeting a month. And the way the letter wrote, it makes you feel that at the end of these meetings, commissioners are all bundled up and locked up in a little box somewhere and kept incommunicado until the next meeting, where we're all brought out and so we can listen to the public. The fact is that every one of the commissioners are available to be reached at any time or any reasonable time. Our phone numbers, email addresses, you know, are all posted on the city website. And I have had a number of residents contact me directly. There is nothing that prevents any resident or any local resident, not just here, from contacting any of us at any time. So I don't see that removing that one time a month the public comment in any way inhibits anyone or prevents anyone from contacting us and making their feelings known. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any further public comment?
Mayor.
Manager Madrid.
Mayor, I think some of the discussion highlights the fact that when someone shows up for public input and says something, I really want to say, so it's true because you say so? When in fact, I'll give you an example in regard to a trim package. When I was in San Miguel County, we had to order new trucks. And the way that the state price agreement is set up, you order the basic model, much like the police department, plus the additional features that you want. Whether it's four-wheel drive, whether it's a towing package, whether it's a safety rack, whether it's a mount for an electric generator, those are trim packages. It's not a bunch of extra chrome and CD players, and anyone is welcome to look at our city vehicles to see how bare bones we equip them. The fact is, if the person mentioning that would have come to my office or to the town hall meetings that we have for clarification, we wouldn't even be talking about this. So comments like cooking the books, comments like unnecessary spending, without verifying anything, those are dangerous when they are accepted. And I encourage everyone, if you have a concern with anything you see in our records, come and see me. And I'll show you the original records and I'll explain why we did what we did. That's what open government is about. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, I'm a former elected official, and I appreciate you, Mayor. Public comment is to address the governing body as a whole. And any time that someone mentions the name of an elected official, the name of an employee or staff member, the name of a family member of any of those is entirely out of order, and I think that that should be dealt with. And I thank you, Mayor, for dealing with that, because it can be dangerous also. I think that it's okay for the public to question and even go beyond that a little bit. But attacking personally or being disrespectful, it doesn't have any place. And I'm going to ask everyone that's listening, bring it to my office. Bring it to my office. If you have questions, you're going to get a lot more information if you come and see me than if you come and stand up here for 3 minutes. Every view that is expressed here is valued by everyone here. I can tell you that. But for the information to flow the other way, come and see me. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And I would just like to thank everyone for your public comments. A lot of times we may not answer or respond right away, but that doesn't mean that we won't get back to you. Again, each and every one of you's comments is very important to us, and if we don't bring it back to a meeting, we will call you individually and talk with you. Manager Madrid is very good at communicating with the public and the people, and just because we took away public comment from the second meeting of the month, remember, at 6 o'clock that evening, Manager Madrid has his door open for anyone that wishes to talk to him, and he allows you more than 3 minutes. Sometimes he'll speak with you up to 15 minutes. Sometimes you'll get more information out of the 15-minute visit in here with him, and then he always brings it back to the commission at the next meeting. So remember, your comments and concerns never go unheard. We're always looking into things, and we're always trying to make our community better. I know that, you know, a lot of people have mentioned the stoplight at Dayton Foch, you know, or Main and Foch, excuse me. That's kind of critical, because if you've got a blind corner that comes around from the bottom, you know, I know personally of several accidents that have happened there. not only by speeders, but by tourists that don't know the roads and don't know the ways to go in and out. So again, when we try to do something for the safety of our community, we're always looking at better ways to communicate. And you know, it may not be a permanent fixture, but it's a temporary fixture and a temporary solution. So again, I thank each and every one of you for your comments and for listening, and I apologize for Mr. Fenn's outrage with Commissioner Szigeti. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item E, consent calendar. The consent calendar this morning consists of E1, City Commission regular minutes, July 24th, 2019. E2, acknowledged Library Advisory Board minutes for July 29th, 2019. E3, acknowledge Airport Advisory Board minutes for January 8th, 2019. And E4, accounts payable for July 2019. Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
Go ahead, I move that we accept the consent calendar as you just read.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the consent calendar as noted. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item F, ordinances, resolutions, and zoning. F1, discussion action resolution number 1219/20, approving the loan grant agreement CIF 4927 and closing documents with the Colonias Infrastructure Board and the New Mexico Finance Authority for Water System Improvements. Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm going to call Tracy up to give you a little bit of background. And while she's coming up, I'm going to see if I get this right. This is a grant for $81,000 that involves a loan of $9,000 and a match of $10,000. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Okay, that's the finance part of it summed up.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. So on June 26th, the Commission approved the accepted and approved the grant agreement, or the acceptance of the award from the Colonias. This award is for a water PER, so it'll include our entire municipal water system, which will include our wells, it'll include our booster stations, as well as all of our distribution lines, the SCADA system, and the Cook Street treatment plant. Right now, our PER only focuses on our downtown water lines, and it limits what we can apply for funding, because all of our funding requires some type of a preliminary engineering report. So we received this, we applied for and received this award, and this is just the documents that they require for the closing of the loan and to proceed forward with the project.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from the Commission?
I have a comment.
Okay.
That's an awful lot of paper for a $9,000 loan.
Let me address that, because that's something I'm going to just talk to you about, because actually on these loan agreements, it's basically on the same format. You have like a 24-page document showing what the resolution is, and sometimes I know sitting here as a commissioner, it may be mind-boggling trying to go through it all, but let me just kind of tell you the shortcut that I've been taking. If you look at this, if you take, the way they always address it is, you have this 24-page document, which is basically the loan grant agreement, but then after that, basically, it's almost, I almost refer to almost as a cheat sheet. If you take a look at the next document, Exhibit A, which is referred to a term sheet, and that kind of gives you the financial terms that, if I can say, Matt has summed up, and it confirms what we just talked about, an $81,000 grant amount, a $9,000 loan amount, and then the second page talks about the match of $10,000. So I would look at that almost first, as soon as whenever I get these agreements, to make sure the numbers on this term sheet comport with what I'm told is what's going to be happening. In this case, it certainly does. One concern I had, and maybe I was looking at this, just from my own professional standpoint, was that they also wanted me to sign. If you look towards the back of the packet, there's a right-of-way certificate. they wanted me to sign, that I'm certifying that we're the owner of these some of the lands needed for the design, facilities design. And I was thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, I mean, this is basically affects the entire city, you know, both the drinking water component. So I had some conversations with our attorneys up in Albuquerque, and they point out that also at the end of that paragraph that you can also state or rely on the fact that this agreement does not require additional titles, easements, or right-of-way to complete the project. So that's what my basis will be to sign the right-of-way certificate. So all in all, I think it comports with what what's been represented to us, what's going on here.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, thanks for going after the water girl.
You're welcome.
I will stand for a motion to approve resolution number 12-19-20. 12-19-20.
I'll make that motion, Mayor, to approve resolution number 12-19-20, approving the loan agreement based on our conversations and the update from our lawyer.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 12-19-20, approving the loan agreement, CIF 4927, and closing documents with the Colonias Infrastructure Board and the New Mexico Finance Authority for water system improvements as noted by and presented by Tracy Burnett. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Deschler.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Takei.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H2, discussion action resolution number 13-19-20 to accept the ICIP for fiscal year 2021 through 2025. Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, I want to start off by giving you a little background on what's been going on with these meetings in the evening that I've been having, and they are also reasons for the change in rules of procedure. The first thing that half of the people have told me when we sit down, because I don't sit here, I sit right there, and we sit together, and it's more personal, it's face to face. Half of them have told me, thank you for having this in the evening when I can come. Thank you for not limiting the time. And if I have 20 people, and I let them know, we're going to try and need to keep it to 10 minutes or so. If I only have 10 people, we can take a little longer, but that's been the best thing that I've heard. The other thing is, I always have more time to spend with the constituents there than here. It's a discussion, it's not an announcement, and it's not always complimentary. I've had a lot of good questions that I can answer, and I'll give you an example. I had a question as to why is the city paying $10,000 a year for postage in code enforcement, and it seems like a lot to send out letters of violation. Well, we don't have a choice. In that arena, if we have a code violation that may go into municipal court or beyond that, we have to show proof of service.
We're on the wrong one.
I'm sorry, I skipped. Okay.
Back up.
Mayor, you're very patient with me. I would have told me to shut up after about 15 seconds. I had just finished making my notes. I apologize, everyone. The ICIP, the background on that is we have had some discussions on the ICIP in here. We have had input from our department heads and some of the employees. We've solicited input from the public. What you have in front of you is a draft of what, in coordinating with an engineer, what Tracy and I have come up with to be included. Now, the ICIP itself is a declaration of what we would like to do. Now, it is not ranked in the order. The top, I would say the top 8 or 9 would be considered our priority. Beyond that, the reason that we have the ICIP, and that stands for Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, is for funding agencies to look at. The state of New Mexico, whether it's for CDBG, whether it's for capital outlay, whether it's for any other funding program, the Water Trust Board, loans with NMFA or Environment Department, they want to see that whatever we're trying to build is the intent of the governing body. That's what the ICIP is about. What we've developed here is based upon all the input that we've gotten and the probability of funding and the probability of success. What we would like for the governing body to do today is to rank the top 5, because those matter, and the rank matters also. There's different ways to do it. You can consider how likely it is to get done, how likely it is to get funded, just plain what the priority is. And that's the pleasure of the governing body. We would like to get this completed and finalized today. So I would ask that you look at the top 7 or 8. And Tracy, I'm going to ask you to come up here again. I have most of the department heads that are involved in capital outlay available to answer any questions. The ones that aren't here have either a project or they're doing interviews that we couldn't change the time on. But if there's any questions, I think Tracy or I or any of our department heads can answer them. So let's just have that discussion and see how we arrive at the top 5.
All right, Ms. Tracy, give us your thoughts and ideas.
Just a couple of notes. You'll notice the very first project that is listed up there. That is our drinking water project. We've received funding for the water system improvements in the $1.2 million from the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund. That is a project that we would like to be able to combine with our roadway improvements. However, at this time, we don't have the street funds. And so that's why that one's listed on there, because we have partial funding if we wanted to call that an all-in-one project. The same with the secondary one. We're in the process of doing an application with USDA for the Cook Street improvements and the downtown water lines. That would not include street funding. We have to apply for that separately. And so the downtown roadway improvements is on the list in hopes that if we get the USDA grant, that we could also maybe be pushing for some street funding as well. The Main Street Great Blocks project, just a reminder that the funding that they received at Main Street was for the design purposes. It's not for the actual construction of the Folk Street improvements. So we have that listed on there. And trying to find which list. We also have a water and sewer line relocation. We will be looking at possible relocation of water and sewer lines on the NMDOT I-25 business loop or roundabout project. So we'll be looking for some funding to assist with those, because that will be our responsibility if we have to relocate any of those water or sewer lines in that area. With that, I'll stand for any questions for any of the other items on there.
Do we have any questions or comments? The order of these that are on this list, are these the priorities? Say like the top 5 we have, looks like on this list I show Regional Sierra Vista Hospital? correct?
So you're looking at last year's,
Okay,
that's last year's ICIP, and that was a priority.
okay.
Yeah, that was the question I had, Mayor,
Yeah,
because we
see,
had no
that's-
choice but to do Sierra Vista Hospital last year as number one and only one.
And that's all we did last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this-
and that's-
This is this year, so I
Okay.
think we're looking at something different.
Renee, if you could put my spreadsheet up, that's the one I'm going off of.
Now, on your spreadsheet, did you put those in order of priority?
Not necessarily, no. I just went through and I think I kind of threw water and streets funding up towards the top of that list. And you'll look that most of it's kind of water, wastewater at the top, and then next is streets. It's more broke down by department,
Okay.
with knowing that water and street funding is right now a big priority. But there is no specific order on my draft.
Okay, and water and wastewater are combined, right? Did you combine those? Or
No, they're separated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the next sheet in our package.
Okay, yeah, so the first one here listed is the water distribution line replacement, right?
Yes.
Water lines and streets.
Yeah, that's the one that we received the $1.2 million for. And really what we need at this point is the funding for the streets to be done when they go through and we dig up that area for the water lines, as opposed to just digging up a little portion where the water lines are located. Ideally, it would be nice to pull that all up, do the water lines, and then put the entire streets. But we don't have the funding for the streets. We only receive money for the water lines.
Okay.
I have a question here.
Commissioner Clark.
Tracy, if you wouldn't mind, it was interesting the other day when it rained, and we got an inch of water at my house, because we measure it, and so I went around with my little camera and took pictures of Lake Broadway, Lake Charles, Lake Faux Street, and the most interesting one was the curb cut that we put into the park right there by Felos's place.
Mm-hmm.
And even still 2 days later, there's still water in that sump. And just a little tiny hole that was trickling out. And I talked to the mayor about this.
Right.
To take a peek at that, because the gradual perking out of that collection of so much water, and I suspect there was, several
Quite a bit of water.
thousand gallons of water in there. So, Commissioners, while we're looking at this, and I agree with Ms. Burnett that water and wastewater is extraordinarily important, but I also believe that the storm drain thing is also important for our downtown people and the people even further down. And I'm not really sure that it's that expensive if we can do some of those same kind of subdiversions, different places.
Right.
So,
And we've talked about this for several years,
Yeah.
because this isn't the first year, and this probably won't be the last year that we've had the water when it rains. And so, I was just kind of thinking over the weekend, maybe there's something we can do along the side roads to divert the water down underground. I mean, it would be a less expensive project, and so I would like to, I know that Commissioner Baca offered to help with this, and I would like to be able to get out with someone from the road department and see if maybe we could do something like Commissioner Clark is talking about to, again, divert all of that water underground so that it's not just a total puddle. Because I do know that, especially around the area of Bullocks and Davis Fleck, it's like, how do we cross the road? It's like a river, you need a boat or something, and then they have to put all those sandbags. So again, that is something we really seriously need to look at doing, is the water diversion.
On the second page, too, of your draft spreadsheet, there is citywide storm drain improvements planning document.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ms. Burnett.
Mayor, one of the things that TRC has in relation to drainage, most of the drainage is above ground. And that's unusual. One of the things that we're looking at, the county is required to do a new floodplain analysis every, what is it, 10 years, Tracy?
I believe so,
And that's
yes.
countywide. So, you know, we're hoping to coordinate with that effort so that we can get an analysis of the impact on the city itself. What we've managed to do so far is just slow the water down. Diverting it is kind of dangerous. Placing it underground is very expensive. So we have to be methodical in what we're doing. We can increase our efforts to slow the water down, but to take it underground is a major, major effort. But that is one of the things that we'll be looking at.
And I do know, I don't know if you guys remember back from some of the design that you guys were presented for the Folk Street improvements, anytime that we have any major design element coming up, it is something we do look at. And I know with the Folk Street, they looked at diversion, you know, maybe into some of those curb cuts and into planners where they, you know, we're going to do some design
I think it
improvements.
was diversion.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, Commissioners, I don't know if you're aware, I think I brought this up before, but the gentleman from Tucson, Brad Lancaster, came out here many years ago and did a presentation to us, and then it was his kind of apprentice, so to speak, that came from Silver City to help us with the Folk Street one. And also Manager Madrid. I don't know if you're aware, but the water lines that carry the hot mineral water directly to the river also are storm drains. And so when it rains, and the problem is that those drains are built into a street that is like this, and the drain's in the middle. And instead of having it concave so that it catches into that drain, and there are, I think, about 5 or 6 of those particular drains in the downtown area that would be great to catch water if the street were built properly so that the water flowed into them instead of to the sides. And I'm happy to show you which ones they are if you ever are interested. But I really do believe that we could do a lot for not a lot of money if we were thoughtful about it.
I'd like to, again, while we're on the subject of drainage, that the fact is that city property owners pay about $140,000, $150,000 every year to the Sierra County Flood District. And we've been paying this for many, many years, and the county has not spent one penny of that money within the city.
Should we all show up at the county offices?
And I think, you know, that, you know, there's a lot of money, and their tax money is supplemented by state and I believe federal funds as well. So there is a resource out there that we should be tapping into for this, because this is a flooding issue. And many of these little diversion projects, like you mentioned, you know, would not be that expensive. We already have another diversion pond on the other side of Foch, up behind the theater. All that is waiting for is the curb cuts. I mean, these things can be done. Since we did that other little one, our city crews now know how they should be placed and constructed. So there's no reason we can't go ahead with some of these ourselves. And there are many other places where such diversions can be put into place. And I would be glad to work with our staff to help identify these as well. I mean, there's a lot of little things that we could be done at relatively small cost. And again, for the major items, I believe we need to be going to the county, to their flood district, and tapping them for some of the money that we have been paying them for a long time.
Commissioner Sergetti, you bring up a really interesting point, since I do own property downtown. It used to be a slump, as the mayor knows, and the entire downtown is a floodplain. And so that being said, your comment, I think, is very poignant, that there is access that we should be looking at to the county, because I believe the flood zone starts right around just above Broadway and goes all the way down to the river. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I hadn't thought about that.
And the other thing is, there are a few grading issues that can be done on the streets. The Broadway was actually graded a little bit lower than the streets to the south, like Austin and Mar. But if we take the north-south running streets, the ones heading down to the river, and if we're working on those streets, many of them are concave and used to channel water. But when we redo these streets, if we can grade them so the water continues to flow down toward the river, and then we'd only have to put in specific drainage structures at the end of these streets. Again, there's some relatively inexpensive solutions we can pursue there. And I think because of the significant impacts that this flooding has to both the downtown businesses and to many of the residences back in the Hot Springs district, there's some pretty good sized puddles that form in the intersections, out in that area too. I think this should be elevated into one of our priorities, especially because there are several things we could do that are relatively easy fixes.
Do we need to put it on the ICIP manager, Madrid, Mayor, or can we do this in-house? How do we approach that?
I would say the answer is both, Mayor Pro Tem, and I would suggest that one of our top 5 items, if we get consensus now, be design and construct drainage improvements within the city of Truth and Consequences. And if you want to name the downtown area as a priority, we could do that, or we could just leave it open-ended.
Leave it open-ended.
That way,
Just move it up to one of our top 5.
yes, and if it's I don't know whether we have drainage by itself on the ICIP. We don't have to select from this list.
Drain improvement.
We can create a new item right now. We do not have to pick from this list. The list just has to be final today.
But that one is on there, correct? It's towards the
It's on there as a planning document, the second to the last one, second page.
So we could just move that up again, like I said, then. So let's do that. Let's move that one up.
There's one other thing too, if I may.
Sure.
And Bo, I may need you on this one, but my understanding is that the street lights, we're not going to be able to purchase the same lights in a couple of years, and we're going to have to modify our street lights in the city. I don't have exactly the right information, but that's my understanding, is that within a couple of years we're going to have to change to an LED or something like that. Is that correct? Can you help my commissioner
I haven't heard
understand
anything
this?
about that, but I did put on the ICP to convert everything to LED lights. So.
Because I think that my understanding is that that within a couple of years there's going to be a mandate that we can't get the same lighting, and so we're going to have to start changing it out. And I don't know if we can do that in-house too with the funding that we have in the electric department.
We budgeted for some of it, not all of it this year.
Okay.
But we're going to start phasing the LED lights in.
So in a phase then, Bo, could we do it on a phasing project in-house? Okay.
And we could also put that on one of our top 5, right?
Well, I'm just saying that we're getting to a point where we're not going to be able to go buy the light to put into the, to
Right.
the housing. We're going to have to replace the entire fixture. Is that not
Yes,
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But if we start phasing LED replacements, that as we replace those, we will be picking up some spare bulbs that we can stockpile to replace the ones we
Well, I
still
think
have in the old
we need
fixtures.
to replace the housing and all of the lights.
Right, yeah, but I'm saying if we say we replace, say, a 6-block area, the bulbs that we're taking out with the fixtures, we can keep those as spares that we can use in the fixtures that we haven't replaced yet.
Well, we put some experimental ones in a few blocks down in the
We're on Grape
housing in
Street?
this area. And so how are they working? Do
It's
we
still
know?
working fine.
They're working good? Okay. It was just a comment I needed to bring up to the commission because I wasn't sure that you were aware that at some point we're not going to be able to replace the current bulbs that we have.
Correct.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark and Commissioners, the other thing to remind you too on the ICIP, it is a shovel-ready project list, and so by taking his project, if he is going to be putting local funds to it, I do have to show that we are looking at other avenues other than the capital appropriation, because obviously this isn't a grant application, it's just showing what our priorities are and showing that we're vested. So that could be listed easily on the ICIP, and I would be able to show that we are using some local funds to proceed forward with that project, and then maybe they would look at that and say, we're going to give you some money for that as well. So,
I like that idea.
We're getting clever.
With all that, I think also the water infrastructure does need to be on that, in that top 5.
Definitely.
That's definitely one that you have to have there.
Well, I'm glad 6 years of complaining about it is making it get to the top.
Okay, so we've got water, electric, and
Water, electric, and storm drain.
storm drain. Folk Street project.
You've got water in 4 different categories, Ms. Burnett. You got water distribution line replacement, water infrastructure and fire hydrants, water production improvement, water sewer line locations, so that's 5.
So these are
And if we have to
currently,
do it all shovel-ready, doesn't that mean that we have to be able to walk in the door and get it done within a year on the ICIP?
ideally, we were given 4 years, usually with an appropriation. Ideally, they want you to use it within 2. The reason these are broke down like this is because some of these are funded. And so they're broke down by current funded projects or applications in process. So your first one is the money that we have received, the project that has been approved, and for the $1.2 million on drinking water, they forgave $600,000. That's really not, we've done the funding for the water lines. That one's just streets. No, because we want the street money, yeah. And so the number 2 one, we're actually working on an application with USDA. As I said, most grant, they want a PER, and right now the only PER we have on water lines is the Cook Street downtown water line areas. So we're working on an application currently with USDA, so that one is listed separately because you need stuff on the ICIP for the funding purposes. The next one, water infrastructure and fire hydrants, that's going to tie into, as you can see, that's a big number, $128 million. That's going to tie into the PER that we are getting the Colonias funding for, because the PER will address all of those. And within that PER, they're going to probably break that down into phased projects. And so this will give us the ability to at least have it on ICIP. We probably won't have our PER completed in time for this stuff when it goes to the legislature, but we will have the PER completed in time for all of our next grant funding cycles. So that's why that's listed separately. That kind of encompasses, and the same with the wells and well improvements. I do believe that Jesse, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, is actually working with some of his own funding on addressing some of the well issues. And so by separating that out, we can show that we're invested with local funds right now. So to try and put the water and encompass all of our distribution lines, all of our production and treatment and everything all as one project, I think would probably scare the entire legislation away if they saw that whole number.
Scares me too.
Right? So by breaking it down into projects, it kind of gives us a little bit more flexibility with applications we'd be putting out there for grants.
If we have if we have the funds for the water line replacement, and but we need the street funds, then that the roadway improvements then should also be in that top 5, because we need that in order to complete a project that we already have funding for.
And just because it's in the top 5 or not in the top 5 doesn't mean that we aren't eligible for funding, whether it be through the capital appropriation or whether it be through any other grant things. Like the Veterans Wall, the money we received on that capital appropriation, I don't think our Veterans Wall was in our top 5 when we received that money, you know. So the ranking is really just a priority list. What you guys are telling us, what your priority is, that we need to really be, you know, held our feet to the fire to go get funding or try and work out with local funding and in-house. And then it also gives the city manager and you as commissioners the guidance to go really best for that project with the legislatures and senators and everything. So, but the actual overall numbering, if it's, you know, ranked as 2023 and our 10th project, it doesn't mean that it's not eligible for funding if it becomes a bigger priority after we've done the ranking. As long as it's on the ICIP and we show that we've made it a priority somewhere within our plan over the next 5 years, it's eligible for funding.
What I would like to see is, excuse me, we've talked about the citywide drainage, okay? So I'd like to see that as a priority. We'd like to see Bo's project with the lighting as a priority. I think road, if there's a road project, we should look at that as a priority. That would be 3. Jesse, you've got water, wastewater, a project there. That would be 4. And then Foch Street project would be 5. Would that be feasible? Or are we just kind of tossing around things and ideas? I mean, each and everything that is on this list is a priority. I can't say it's not, it's important, but we've got to start somewhere. And again, even if we can work at getting this project funded, getting it started, and then maybe moving on to something else, we just need a guideline and something to go by. So again, how do you feel about those 5? That would be the water,
I
the
think those are
electric, the road, and the water drainage. That's very important. We've worked on that now. I think we've talked and discussed that for the last 5 years that I know of. And so that really, really needs to be kind of something that we look at. Anybody else? Any other ideas? Manager Madrid?
Mayor, if I were part of the elected body, I would make the motion to accept that. I think that's
I just made it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
All right.
And then we just keep the rest of them on the list, Tracy, but just bump those 5 up to the top.
Right.
Yes, correct.
Commissioner Heschler has a comment.
I'm in agreement with what you just said, and that's fine. I do want to keep 9th Street, the hospital near the top, only because it's access to our new hospital.
Correct.
And we have emergency services on 9th Street, as the fire department, as well as the ambulance services come down that street. 9th Street is not in as bad condition as Gold Street, however. I want to make sure Gold Street is part of that loop, because if Gold Street connects to the emergency room, and it goes straight down to 3rd Street, so anything east would be much quicker for ambulance service to reach if they're going to go down Gold Street. And Gold Street right now is like a roller coaster, so I know it's going to have to be addressed fairly soon.
And that's been one of the projects too that we've addressed several for several years now, since the hospital came on board as a new hospital, addressing from 3rd to 9th, going up Gold Street to the emergency room, and again, that's what one of our public comments was this morning.
I can add that in with no problem.
So I think those top 5 would be priorities, and then we would go 6 and 7, and then kind of go down from there. Would that work?
Yep,
And
that
then
would
we
be
could
perfect.
just bump them according to what we need. And again, you know, some of my commissioners fellow commissioners made some great comments about contacting the county flood department that we pay into and seeing where we can go from there to get some kind of assistance to help the flooding in the downtown area when it rains.
Madam Mayor, I have one other question, and I said I agree with your ranking, but on that second page, you have the wastewater plant improvements. Now, is that stuff that's already part of like the Phase 2B? Is that why that's in there, or?
No, these are just additional things that need to be maybe addressed or improved upon within the wastewater.
But see, I think everything on this list, even though we list it as our top 5 priorities, which we hope we'll get funding for, and then we can just kind of each year, hopefully, gradually move everything up and around. I mean, you know, that's a big wish list, but again, we can't do anything unless we ask for it.
Correct.
Wasn't there another 127 million for wastewater lines listed? I saw that somewhere in our wish list. Because
We don't have any type of a PER right now on our wastewater, on our sewer lines.
That's why that isn't included here.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's really just kind of comes to kind of a back and forth priorities, you know. Right now, getting that water PER kind of is a little bit more important than the sewer PER, but it's a very close second. So.
Okay, so does it matter what order we put those 5 in, or can you give us a quick listing of the 5 priorities so we can make a motion on those?
So.
1 electric, 1 road, 1 water, Foat Street, and the storm drainage.
I would say for our water, I would definitely keep the USDA, the downtown water lines. That's Cook Street Treatment Plant. I would make that as the main water one.
Okay.
For the streets department, I think focusing on the water, making that an all-in-one project with the water, the number 1 on this list here with the drinking water project. I would make that a number 1 streets one. And of course, we have the lighting already, replacement of those. We can put that one in there in the top 5. And
Foat Street and the drainage.
yeah, the drainage and the drainage planning document, and even, no, the design and construct drainage improvements within the downtown area.
And then 6 and 7 would be like 3rd to Gold, or 3rd to 9th of Gold, and those other projects that Commissioner Heschler mentioned.
Yes.
Is everybody in agreement with that? In agreement with it?
I still think that we need to have Marie Street right there as well, because now that the kids are there.
Well, and we can put that could be like 8. And again, these things kind of fluctuate, you know, it's not just one project, but these are our 5 top priorities, and then we just go from there. You know, again, we've talked about these for the last 5 or 6 years, so we really, really need to start working on something. And I think working together and having a list and just kind of moving things up gradually, we'll get where we need to be.
And I'll be working on doing these entries. These entries are due and in the system, have to be certified in the system by the 3rd or 4th of September. So I'm definitely open to any emails from any commission. If you see something that's on the list that we don't have in the top 5, but you feel like maybe we should put that as number 1 for the 2022 year, you know, shoot me out an email and let me know. And those are discussions that we'll be having internally with Manager Madrid and the department heads on ranking the rest of these for each priority year.
Perfect.
Can you do it that way?
Yes.
Just one more comment, Mayor, and that's the swimming pool improvement. My understanding is that we probably won't make another year with the current swimming pool cover, and so we need to be looking at an option to replace that and do something on a little more permanent. So not that it needs to be moved up, just as
It's a thought process, and that's kind of at our forefront of our thoughts too, because we have discussed that, and Manager Madrid, do you want to speak on that?
Yes, Bo and I and Kyle went out to the pool yesterday because it concerns the safety of the bubble and the electrical connections and sources associated with that. We have some electrical boxes that are within the deck of the pool that may not be safe and are very questionable. If Bo says we need to look at them, we're going to have a representative from the state of New Mexico Construction Industries Division come down and take a look and see if we're operating within the code even. We may not have the option of putting that bubble again up this year. We've already scheduled to talk to architects and engineers about a new design to cover the pool. Kyle has located at least one design that was done in Canada where it is freezing year-round so that it doesn't rust, it's temperature-friendly, and not that expensive to operate. So we're already looking at options because it doesn't look like we're going to be able to set up the bubble and use the pool this winter. But we're looking for another plan already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I go back to my motion?
Yes, go back to your motion, so we can get this done.
With
Keep going.
Commissioner Heschler's kind of modification for number 6 and 7.
All right, I have a motion for those top 5 and 6 and 7.
I have a question. I know we selected which 5 we're putting in the top 5. Do you have to rank those within 1 through 5 themselves? And were you doing that when you mentioned the 5, or if you just pick 5, it doesn't matter the order?
I think that as long as we have the items the commission requested within the top 5, the actual ranking.
We probably should read them in the order of rank.
And that would work,
into the
yeah.
record. Yes.
So
Okay.
your top ranking of your 5.
So number 1 would be water infrastructure improvements in the downtown and Cook Street.
Okay.
Number 2 would be the street funding for the water line replacement drinking water state revolving loan fund project, would be the streets portion of that. Number 3, I have the electric improvements. Number 4, design construct drainage improvements. Number 5, don't think we identified other than just saying a possible wastewater.
Now, we were doing Foch Street project, that's number 5.
Oh, number 5, that's right, the
Right,
Foch
and then we
Street
were going-
improvements.
Right.
Okay. And then number 6, I know you said 6, 7, but I can actually add Gold Street into that whole section, yeah, as opposed to list it separately. So we could do number 6 as the hospital loop project, and I'll just add Gold Street as part of the hospital loop.
That works.
Madam Mayor, I amend my motion to follow what Ms. Burnett just mentioned for us.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Did you get all of that, Renee? Ms. Renee? Okay. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? And again, remember, if there's anything that you don't see on the list and you would like added to the list, email the manager, email Tracy, and we'll get these projects. And again, I thank you for your patience. I thank you for all your hard work, and let's just keep moving forward.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Aye.
Honorable George Getty?
Aye.
Motion carries, and I thank all of you once again. The next item on our agenda is item 3, discussion action resolution number 141920, amending rules of procedure. Manager Madrid.
Mayor, with your permission, I'll continue my sermon
Yes,
that I
sir.
started.
Your sermon?
The other advantages, other than, I think I left off on more time, is when I interact with our constituents in here, oftentimes we can achieve resolution. For example, this last meeting that I had, during the meeting, we approved a design for Ralph Edwards Park. And I had a question on why are you approving this design without updating your comprehensive plan first? Well, while the park improvements are part of a comprehensive plan improvement goal, the plan itself is not, the design itself, a specific design, is not part of a plan. The intent to improve is part of a plan. So the concept of park improvements is already within the plan. The final design is not, because if we had changes to the design, if we had delays in construction, we can't go back and update a comprehensive plan, which is a concept, which is an abstract for something specific like this. So that explanation took place, that issue was resolved. We can't get that kind of resolution here when public input takes place here in the chambers. The other thing is that it provides options. When we have public input here, I can't call on one of our department heads to come up and say, well, this is why we're working on the street in this area instead of this area. We have to take advantage of the weather. If we're going to be laying asphalt, we can't do that in the winter, those kind of things. There's a lot more advantages to the individual discussions than to the one-sided communication. I think it's working really well. Not only that, Mayor, I get a better turnout in the evening than we do here for actual discussion. And it's more productive because I've found that people that are willing to come and take their time and actually sit with me have a concrete issue that is open to discussion and is not just throwing rocks at us and running away. That's not productive. This is productive, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you. And I would like to thank Manager Madrid for taking on this project. I think it's good. It was just done on a temporary basis. But I do think, like Manager Madrid stated, that there are more people that will come forward and speak. They have a bigger and better opportunity to visit with the city manager and come to a conclusion. I know that last meeting, the last meeting of July, I did have an individual that walked up and wanted to give public comment. He'd never come in before, and he asked about public comment. I explained to him, and so he left. But I followed him out the door because I felt as the mayor, as a commissioner, it was my responsibility to find out what he needed. I did not want to deny him that opportunity to speak. We talked out in the parking lot. I advised him that the manager would meet with him in the evening if he would like to come back at 6 o'clock, and he would probably get a better resolution out of just coming up and talking to all of us. And it was just something simple, and he did come back and he was happy. So again, if they come in, we explain the issue, we explain the situation, and again, it's up to that individual to come in and visit. And Manager Madrid is here. The door opens at 6 o'clock on the Wednesday of our second meeting. Our second meeting of the month of August will be on a Tuesday because we've moved our day back. So we'll have to remind everybody to come in on that Tuesday evening instead of Wednesday evening. But again, I just see that it working very well. And if it ever, at any time, it does not work, we will always look at going back to having the 2 public comments. Do I have any other questions from our commission? Yes.
If I might interject and add to what City Manager Madrid said, there are a couple of other corrections in here I wanted to call your attention to, so you're aware that those are being approved as well. Just kind of clean up where, I believe it's on page 4, where it says a copy of the agenda shall be prepared for everyone. I just added in an electronic copy because that's where we are. And people who wish to be placed on the agenda said complete written documentation. So I just added in agenda request form. So just a little cleanups throughout it. So I wanted to call your attention as well. So it's in there for the record.
Thank you. And I'd like to also just mention that we do now, we do now have a sign-up sheet for those that wish to sign up to speak and give public input, public comments. You don't have to sign up in order to speak, but it makes things flow a lot smoother if you do sign up. And then that way I just call each person by name as they're listed on the sign-up sheet, and it kind of moves more smoothly. If someone comes in or they don't want to again sign it in, they're not denied speaking in public comment. But this does make it more easier, and it is also available at the table when you do come in. Again, I thank you. Is there any more questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion.
Mayor Whitehead, I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 19-20, amending rules of procedure as presented by Manager Madrid, and as presented through the handout that was presented by our clerk, Canton.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 19-20, amending the rules of procedure as noted by City Manager Madrid, and also a few of the correction as noted by Clerk Canton. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hischler.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Segedi.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H1, discussion action. Consider the recommendation of the Airport Advisory Board to reappoint Gerald LaFont and David Sten. Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, this recommendation comes from the Airport Advisory Board, as I understand the terms were ending, and they are available to reappointment. It's the Advisory Board's recommendation that they continue in their capacity, and I concur with the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have any questions, comments, or concerns? I will stand for a motion.
Madam Mayor, I would like to make a motion to reappoint Gerald LaFont and David Sen to the Airport Advisory Board.
Should that be considered the recommendation of the Advisory Board?
Okay, yeah, and
Based on?
based on the recommendation of the Airport Advisory Board.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to consider the recommendation of the Airport Advisory Board to reappoint Gerald LaFont and David Sten to the Airport Advisory Board. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is to consider the recommendation to the Airport Advisory Board to appoint Bill Whittle as a new member. Manager Madrid.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is the same type of item, but this is a new member that also carries the recommendation of the Airport Advisory Board. I concur with their recommendation and ask your approval.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I will stand for a motion.
Mayor White, I'd like to approve the recommendation of the Airport Advisory Board to appoint Mr. Bill Whittle as a new member of that board.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second to consider the recommendation of the Airport Advisory Board to appoint Bill Riddle as a new member. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is discussion action, approval of master mutual aid agreement. City Manager Madrid and Chief Tully.
Mayor, Commissioners, before I invite Chief Tully to get started on some background explanation agreement, I want to thank the chief for all of his expertise and collaboration and information that he's always willing to provide. There's very few times where the chief walks down the hall past my office without an idea or a suggestion or a way to make things easier for everybody. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. What's in front of you here, Madam Mayor and Commissioners, is a master mutual aid agreement. This was, I started this project when I was my county position to work with all of the county fire departments on the mutual aid agreement. We really wanted to move this into the entire county so that all the county fire departments and the municipal fire departments will have this mutual aid. We do a lot of mutual aid just because of the emergency and situation, and somebody will call and we will send resources and whatever we do to help the community or communities. So what we did is I put this master mutual aid together, cleared it through our county side. It's on the agenda for the next meeting next week of the county with all 7 of the county fire departments. What this also allows us to do, this was approved by the State Fire Marshal's Office as well. The biggest thing it does, for one, it puts it in writing that if somebody calls, if Las Palomas has an emergency and they call us, it's up to the chief, TRC, to decide if they have resources or can, maybe we're responding and we can't go, then they would call somebody else. So we're not required to go. It's just that if we do, we have a game plan and a template to follow. We carry our own insurance. We can, if something breaks down, we don't charge the county. It's basically just all the crossing of the T's and dotting of the I's. And one of the bigger things it does too is it allows us to, with mutual aid agreements, if we decide to go get some FEMA funding or some grants through the State Fire Marshal's Office, having mutual aid agreements available always helps to know that all of the fire departments and EMS are working together. So with that, I'm recommending as fire chief for the city of To the Consequences that we enter into this agreement as well. And the last one I have in play is we will present this to Toby at Elfin Butte to see if he can work this in, and we'd love to send this off to Fiora Industries as well at Spaceport America as a mutual aid. We do a lot of stuff with them. They help us out in the county quite a bit in that area. We allow them to use our county frequencies and paging frequencies and so forth. So it's just about everybody playing together. When emergency comes down, we need all these agencies to work together. So this is just part of that, putting this in play, and I recommend as fire chief that you will approve this.
Thank you, Chief Tully. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a comment. Chief, my experience watching the fire departments in the county has been that you always worked with each other and helped each other out already. So when you say just dotting I's and crossing T's, is this just a little bit of an extra boost to cover yourselves just in case something happens?
Exactly. Some of this is because then if something were to happen, each entity has their own insurance. We have insurance on our trucks through the city, but then we pay for our personnel through VFIS, which is volunteer fire insurance. But if something were to happen, the agreement basically spells out in writing from a legal point of view that we were responding to help another agency, but we understand our risk that we take is that if something were to happen to one of the trucks or something on the way there, that it's still our responsibility as the city of TRC, or whoever is responding to help us would be their responsibility.
Was there some occurrence that prompted you to write this up?
I've been working on this for about 2 years, trying to get everything, all the players, all the alpha males in the fire service to play together is always a big problem. But to get them all on one page, to come up with a mutual aid that everybody was happy with and so forth, and the State Fire Marshal's Office was happy with. So it's more of a legal proceeding that we have it in play in case something does happen down the road, even though we do mutual aid quite a bit already.
Attorney Rubin?
Actually, you and I talked yesterday, you gave some really helpful information, which is why but actually just looking at the agreements, who actually are the signatories to this agreement?
The signatories, if you look on the very back page, the actual signatories are going to be the agencies as to what it is. So our agency would be the Truth or Consequences Fire Department, approved by the governing board of that, and then the counties would be the same way, each of the individual county agencies. So we have 7 fire departments in the county. Some of them run EMS as well. So those, each one of those entities, and those will all be approved and presented to the county commission next week.
So are you saying actually all these 7 individual departments are they going to be all signing off on this, or just the city and the county? That's what they
No, well, the county will have to sign off for all 7 of the entity fire departments. The reason being, if we look at, one of the things that was brought up was in accordance in that first part where it says the agreement entered into is Chapter 59A 5317, which is mutual assistance. That is state law through the State Fire Marshals Act. So we put that in there because that spells out how that process is to be done by state law. Then it's up to the entities receiving fire funds that each individual fire department, whether they're the whole county or not, be a part of their own agencies to join that. So they have all committed to it, and those will all be finalized with one vote through the county commission next week.
I see. So, okay, so we'll have these 7 different departments that are saying yes, and they're in favor of it. Actually, the only signatures will be the city and the county.
Yeah, but each one of the counties will have their own signature page. So each agency has its own page.
I got it.
Okay? And then there is an out clause in their form as well.
Well, and also Commissioner Clark and the commission, I mean, I thought the key here was when I was reading this, is, you know, I certainly wouldn't want us to feel obligated that every time there's like a flyer, I could really apply and read this to the county that we would be obligated. But, you know, as you pointed out in the agreement that, you know, if we would look at each event as a separate case by case and see whether we can actually have a person now make the determination whether we can actually help.
Right.
out.
We receive state fire funds. All the fire departments that are part of either the county or the city receive those fire funds to protect the structures in their district. That's what they receive money for. It's up to the chief to determine if he has the resources at the time of the call to send somebody. And of course, it always comes down to if something were to happen, those people can be called back immediately, back into their own district. So more of this is just helping other communities. They may have a situation where they need more resources to help whatever emergency they have, and it's a lot nicer to be able to call your neighbor to come help you out.
Well, I am in favor of this agreement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have any further questions, comments, or concerns?
Chief, Fiore Industries has mutual aid agreements now with a couple of other entities in the county already, so I understand that this mutual aid agreement would supersede those agreements, and then we would be covered under one blanket agreement. Is that the way you see it? Or?
Yeah, technically I do, especially from the way this one's designed. This one's designed for fire and EMS through the State Fire Marshal's Office. Even though State Fire doesn't do EMS, a lot of the fire departments receive fire funds and can use some of those funds for EMS. So I believe that this one would be the new agreement that would be between Fiore Industries and this agreement with everybody else that has joined the agreement. So from that standpoint, so if this does not, there's a section in here that says that it doesn't supersede. The parties to this agreement shall not be precluded from entering into similar agreements or first response agreements. So you could still have other agreements that you may have in place. It's just that if you join this agreement, these are the guidelines that we would set out for that. So I think the agreement we may have, that we currently have between Fiore Industries and the county, this would probably replace that. Because I don't know how deep we went into that one, if that one was even ever written, or whether it was just a mutual aid agreement, verbal agreement.
Yeah, that's true. So no, it's nice to have this document to work with.
Absolutely. So I will email you a copy of this.
Right. Okay. I do have a copy, by the way. So.
Oh, do you? I gave it to you, correct?
Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion to approve the master mutual aid agreement.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the master mutual aid agreement as presented by Fire Chief Tooley and City Manager Madrid.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or comments or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The next item on our agenda this morning is discussion action, selection of a voting delegate and alternate for the New Mexico Municipal League Annual Conference to be held in Las Cruces, New Mexico from August 28th through 30th, 2019. Manager Madrid.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you can see, the item calls for a selection of voting delegates and alternate for the New Mexico Municipal League. As a very brief background, the Municipal League represents all of the municipalities except for a few of them that chose not to be members in many, many issues, especially in lobbying legislation that is unique to cities. There are several committees, there are several bodies that meet year-round in determining the types of resolutions to be presented to the legislature. For example, whether to recommend or support an additional local gas tax to provide more funding to cities, or to give the local option so that local bodies can enact that tax. There's a lot of collaboration year-round among all of these committees and among the leadership in the Municipal League. This creates representation for the City of Truth or Consequences to have a voice in selecting that leadership for the next year. That these selections take place during the last week of August at their annual conference that's going to be held in Las Cruces. This action is to select the voting delegate and an alternate. Normally, that voting delegate is a chief elected official.
Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns? And I do plan on attending the New Mexico Municipal League Conference this year, so.
Mayor, my understanding, the last several years, we've had the city manager and the city clerk attend, and sometimes just the city clerk. The question to you, Mayor, is if you're attending, are you comfortable being the head delegate?
I don't mind that, or we could put Manager Madrid as the head delegate and I could be the alternate.
We can put you on all of them.
Right, and I understand it's always been the city manager, so that's perfect for me, and the city clerk as the alternate. I'm just going, so, I mean, the decision is up to you.
No, it's to all of us, but it's
Right.
just the
Yeah.
comfort zone and what we've, in the past done.
And I would feel good with Manager Madrid being, because he's probably been there and done that before, as have several of the other city managers. And Clerk Canton's always been on board as being, oh, is she? Okay, so.
What's that?
Her grandbaby's due that week, so.
Oh, no, we can't do that to you. We can't, no.
Grandma has to be there.
No, that's big. That's huge.
Grandma has to be there.
Grandma has to be there. Okay, so the motion would be to have Manager Madrid be the main delegate and the Mayor of City of Truth and Consequences as the alternate.
That would work.
And if we don't have a grandbaby, then we have a third.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, I guess that was a motion and a second. Manager Madrid. Manager Madrid as the voting delegate and Mayor Sandy Whitehead as the alternate. Unless there's a baby, then they'll have a third.
Make sure you get that verbatim.
Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. But we hope there is a grandbaby. All right, the next item on our agenda this morning is item 8.6, discussion action, approval of design for City of Truth or Consequences billboards on Interstate 25. Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, these are two designs that I received. I think we're going to need to rotate them and blow them up a little bigger. Is from Joni Griffin at Griffin Associates. They were shown to the Lodgers Tax Board, and the comments that were received was they generally liked the design. On The first one, the one you see here, the only concern that they had was a contrast in some of the lettering. On the one you're looking at right now, where it says sierracounty.info, there was a concern with the contrast and being able to see the lettering there. So they requested that coloring or the coloring of the letters be redone to provide a better contrast. And the other picture, the concern was the contrast where it says Hot Springs Cool Town around the word town, specifically around the letters WN, the contrast there. Also, right among the T in the word true, if there's something that could be done to better the contrast in those areas, the board recommended approval with those minor changes. They're before you now for you to review and comment on or request any other changes.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns?
Okay, now, these are all, these illustrations are very wide in comparison to their height, and it's not the shape of the standard billboard. Does that mean they would have to construct a new platform to put these on?
No, they are actually intended to be on the billboard. They may not be to scale the way that we're bringing them up on the computer, but they are intended to be billboard size.
Billboards.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
And these will be replacing the billboards north and south, correct?
Yes, these are the ones that are meant to be on I-25.
I think the design is a big improvement over the previous ones. Personally, I think they're really not worth the money that we're spending on them. I don't know that billboard, my personal opinion is that billboards are not particularly effective in getting the message out. Most people driving are more in, especially as close to Las Cruces as the one to the south is, most people in that area are more interested in watching the traffic than the billboards. But I do think this is an improvement to the design of the ones that they will be replacing. So if we decide to continue with the billboards, with the possibility of, like I said, putting like a white background behind those lettering to allow to make them more readable, it is a vast improvement.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I'll make my comments, but I'm not going to vote on this one, just so that you know. I think it's a good idea to rotate the different presentations that you have. I think it would be a good idea to replace the Las Cruces one. I agree with Commissioner Sergetti that billboards don't have the impact that they used to have. The one that's north of Socorro has been unreadable for years. And the message is important. I think the message is correct on this one, personally. And I agree that the top one that we're looking at is very difficult to read the message that says Hot Springs Cool Town. And that little bit needs to be more just more poignant, because that's the message we're putting out. We're not putting out true, we're putting out the Hot Springs Cool Town part. Those are my comments, and I think that rotating from one Hot Springs to another Hot Springs to another Hot Springs to another, since we have so many, including the Airbnbs, we're looking at about 35 to 40 different locations, that it's a good idea to change out the locations at times. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I'd like to, you kind of did point out something. The billboards do say New Mexico True in the lower right-hand corner. And I think that having that large, in caps, in parentheses, word true after Hot Springs Cool Town detracts from the message we're trying to say. It seems, I don't think that is really needed up there. We've got New Mexico True in the logo, which covers us with the state. And I think the message we want to send is Hot Springs Cool Town. And I would like to see the word true up on the top, deleted from both of them.
Mayor, may I bring Linda?
Yeah,
for a minute,
Linda,
please?
can you come down and explain the design of this? Also, while Linda is coming down, I've traveled a little bit around the state in the last couple of days or last week, and in particular, I saw a billboard for one business, and this billboard was like, one was here and one was here and one was there. So as you traveled, you saw 3 billboards. They may have each said something different, but they were for the same company, whether you went north or whether you went south. And so I thought that was really cool because, again, it was bright, it was attractive, it was inviting, and it was like, come and see us, you know. So I had a talk with Manager Madrid about something like that. If maybe we could possibly look into something. I mean, we need to brand and promote, and if that's what we need to do, then let's get her done. Linda?
Thank you. New Mexico True, my understanding is that these billboards are part of the matching money for the co-op marketing grant. So we do have to follow the guidelines of New Mexico True. They're very strict. And I think the True thing is one of their things that they require. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's part of the thing.
Has to say it, but I'm not sure it has to be exactly in that place twice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it does have New Mexico True in the bottom where it says, and I don't, you know,
Right.
I think it's really detracting from the message. You know, why do we have to say, okay, Hot Springs Cool Town, and then put in big bold letters, True?
Okay, so what happened was New Mexico did several years back, they did a bunch of market studies, and basically they had people coming in and saying, tell us what you know about New Mexico. And people basically had the impression that there was really nothing genuine or real about New Mexico. So that kind of was a thing that was a catalyst for all the New Mexico True things. And so moving forward, they're trying to, you know, basically push the idea that these are authentic experiences in New Mexico, thus the True. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, though.
I think you're right.
If you put True behind it, it kind of sends the message that if we have a billboard, it's not necessarily true unless we put the word true up there. I think it really detracts from the message.
I think what probably could happen is, I mean, you can go back to, I think it's Sunny 505 now.
Yes.
And ask them if it's a requirement, and if it's not, maybe they can take it out. I mean, and honestly, if they, well, and if yeah, they could possibly, I mean, their guidelines are really wonky, but if they can take it out, then they can probably, you know, increase the size of our Hot Springs Cool Town, which is like more of the message that we're wanting to send anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would rather see the Hot Springs Cool Town increase in size, and because, you know, the way it stands, your eyes are, it's so big and prominent, your eyes are drawn to that, and whatever attracts your eyes is the message that's going to get through.
Yeah, honestly, it's a little disappointing that they sent these images through with that these were the images they proposed to you with the, you know, with the difficulty in reading them. I mean, this is what they do all the time, so. I mean, they're like a marketing company, so I'm surprised that they even let those images come to you with the, being unable to see those words.
That's a really good point.
Right.
And, you know, there's another option, that's just to send them back. Send them back and have them redone with the message that Commissioner Shugeti's talking about and make that the bold point.
Yeah, that would be an idea. Thank you, Linda. All right, is there any further questions, comments, concerns?
Yes,
Manager Madrid.
I'll give you this recommendation,
Okay,
that I communicate with Sunny 505 regarding the big word "true," and if that can be removed, then we can approve the design along with adjustments in the contrast. I don't think those will be an issue. However, not approving without the removal of the words, the big word "true." Does that sound reasonable, or should we accept a reduction of the size of the word "true"?
remove a reduction.
If it's not, if the state doesn't require it, I would advise removing it entirely.
Right. Now, if it is required, then either accept it or request another design?
Well, you know, if that word "true" up there in that position is required, I would say reverse the sizes. Make Hot Springs Cool Town big and make "true" smaller behind
Okay.
it. So that, because Hot Springs Cool Town is the message we want to send. And that should be the predominant and most noticeable lettering on that sign.
Any further questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion.
Madam Mayor, just remember that I am removing myself from this decision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. How should I work? I would make the motion to send this design back with the recommendation to remove the word "true" from the top line if it is not required by the state, and to then increase the size of the words "Hot Springs Cool Town," and to make adjustments on the picture so that make that lettering more visible against the background.
That is one long motion.
Perfect. Perfect. Do I have a second for that motion? I will second that motion. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns?
Just one. Attorney Rubin, I'm okay pulling myself out of this even though I had a conversation.
Sure, well, yeah, yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, or concerns other than Mayor Pro Tem Clark's? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Please note that Commissioner or Mayor Pro Tem Clark recused herself from the vote. I did. All right, the next item and the last item, I guess, on the agenda this morning is item 7, discussion action approval of design for City of Truth or Consequences logo. Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, this next item actually came about out of necessity. I think we ran out of stickers for our vehicles, and upon meeting some, we were very fortunate. We didn't solicit anything because really it was kind of an afterthought. I'm very thankful that Andy came forward with some tweaks to our logo and very small changes in the design. Really, there's the addition of the New Mexico flag and the United States flag within the design, and then the change in the font where it says City of Truth and Consequences. And then there's a choice of background colors. Can we make those bigger, the two new ones? The one on the right has the white lettering, and the current one is the one on the left. You'll notice the coloring. If you look at the guy taking a golf swing, the coloring there stands out a little better. In the middle triangle shape on the top, you can see the flags of the United States and New Mexico. And then you can see the color differences throughout, so the contrast is better. And the lettering is different. And the other choice was a yellow lettering instead of white. Do we have that one? We don't have that one? The difference in color is minor. And it's just a little bit darker than the white. I think it looks better than the white. The yellow is a little better contrast, I think. Let me see if it's in here.
And on the seal, there's just a little more detail, and it's just a little bit more vibrant. It stands out more, the flags and the colors and whatnot. And of course, I like the yellow lettering, but the white. What's that? I know, but it's still cool.
And I'm sorry we don't have the yellow, but I would recommend the yellow lettering.
This is the only one that the graphic guy sent me, so.
Well, we have both of them here. Do we have them here? We can get them here. Thank you.
While we're waiting for Kristen, do we have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the upgrade of the?
I'm just looking at the font, and those letters have some pretty thin lines on them. And when you reduce the size down, if we're using it for, say as a letterhead or something like that, some of that lettering becomes a little bit hard to see, like the right branch of the U, and some of the horizontals on the E. Some of those get really thin when you reduce the size. And if you're putting a sticker on a vehicle, that's going to show up fine. But when you reduce the size, the lettering starts to fade out a little bit. And I would recommend maybe folding that font,
We want to try that and then bring it back to the commission?
And then
Kristen's got the yellow font here, if everybody would like to look at it.
yeah, that does pop. there.
See, and that yellow just pops with, and then this was the white lettering.
No, that's the old font.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
old one.
that uses, it's the new, this is the old design.
Yeah.
Right,
Are they charging for the new design?
I don't think so. No.
They're not? Okay.
Who's they?
Who is they, Andy?
This is a Desert Graphics of the
Oh, okay.
design revised by Donald Kern.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, from my interest, the vendor we have been using is Southwest Signs, so they're the ones that designed the other one on the left. So, I guess because they went to a different vendor is where that kind of came about.
Any
You
other
really
questions?
don't want to hear my comments, do you?
Come on. We're here for comments, concerns.
This was designed 25 years ago, and there are not a lot of people that understand that international sign for hot mineral water. And our golf course and our city hall, it's very busy to me. And I had to write a letter on city letterhead the other day, and it was almost impossible to see what's in that tiny little logo when it shrinks down, because there's so much in it. And one of the things that we in the tourism board for many years have had a problem with is that we were all trying to do countywide branding, and it's almost impossible. So if you're going to brand the City of Truth or Consequences, brand the City of Truth or Consequences and make it easy to see. And so my comment is it's too busy, it's outdated, and it might be a good time to upgrade our reality as we're looking to hire a tourism director for the city. So my comment as Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner of this is that we ought to take another look at it, and we may want to consider, even though we do have local people helping us with it, we may want to consider what Main Street would do, because it costs us nothing to have them come down and say, let's take a look at you guys. What would our version or vision be? Because they're looking at it from the outside. And that's my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
And it was also suggested earlier that maybe this be put out as a contest, you know, maybe to our arts high school. I mean, there's different options that we could look at if, you know, if that's the...
I mean, if you want to print this on your machines, go ahead and print it, but I still think it's a good idea to change it, because it's not legible on our letterhead. Is that correct? I mean, I had a copy of those letterhead in my office, and I'm looking at it and saying, I wonder what that is.
Right, and it shrinks down very small. So then, is it the desire to go ahead and postpone this or approve this as such, and then look at something new in the future, or where do we want to go with it? Manager Madrid?
Thank you for putting me on the spot here.
Okay.
I welcome it. Well, here's the practical side of both, I think. We need to order new stickers. Do we order new stickers, or do we keep the same ones? It really doesn't matter. We can keep the old one. I do agree that the design in general may not fully reflect who Truth or Consequences is. A year ago it didn't, because of the condition of our golf course. I think now it's okay. But I think it is something that we should look at. The logo should be a symbolism of the community. I asked around and I couldn't find out what the symbolism was for the rope. And there should be a connection. Every piece of the logo should have a connection to our community. So I think there will be a good opportunity to redesign it. I think that could be one of our tasks of our new staff person that we bring aboard for tourism and event coordination. I think that could be one of the tasks of that person, to coordinate with other groups and see what we come up with long term. In addition to that, I want to at some point start another discussion about our efforts in tourism and economic development overall. I think while we've been collaborating and working with other groups, I think we need to establish our own identity and our own efforts. And I think in some cases we need to be part of a group, and in other cases we need to take care of ourselves. And I think we need to establish a plan for that. So that's one thing that I will be recommending to you as far as this particular logo. If we want to just live with what we've got, we can make it a priority to have another design drafted within the next 6 months. I think if we want to keep it simple, we keep the same logo. We don't have to change letterheads. We just order extra decals. We don't have to change them on all the vehicles. That's a simple way to go. If we want to redo the logo long-term entirely, then let's just leave this alone and keep the stickers that we have and order some more. And agree that we're going to try and redesign the logo in a serious way by the end of the calendar year.
Mayor, I really like that idea.
Do I have a motion?
Somebody else make it for me, please.
I'll go ahead then, and thank you, Commissioner Clark, for kind of bringing us back in and looking at the real issue here, and, you know, but I would make a motion to keep the design as it is and replace whatever stickers we need for the immediate future, and that we make the a redesign of our city logo a priority, something to be done within the next 6 months.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to go ahead and leave the logo as is temporarily, order what we need, and then look at redesigning within this next 6 months, as noted by Commissioner Zaghetti. All those, is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item I, reports. City Manager.
Mayor, Commissioners, the first thing that I want to report on is the item we just addressed. I hope that everyone noticed that although we didn't take any action, there's action that's going to take place. I want to thank Andy for, without any instruction, without any direction given, taking the initiative to see something and trying to make it better. That, although we didn't adopt this design, led to, now we're going to redesign the logo completely. And that's part of the teamwork and the attitude that reflects who TRC really is. And I'm very proud of you for that, Andy. Thank you. The other thing that I want to report on is the last time that I did have town hall meetings, some of the things that were discussed were I had an issue with someone that had an issue with his landlord in regard to the living conditions. While I wasn't able to address that directly at that minute, I was able to provide some guidance and some advice as to who handles those types of issues. I did end up finding out where the property was, just to make sure we didn't have any code violations. I have been in contact with the renter, and I don't know whether it's completely resolved yet, but I think we're getting there. We also had an issue regarding some dogs that were maybe not licensed or were barking late at night. They were directed to code enforcement, and I don't just say, go see code enforcement or go see animal control and go away. I say, go talk to code enforcement or animal control, and if you don't get resolutions, come back and see me. So that's one of the ways that it's kind of an assumption. If I don't hear back, then I'm assuming that that's resolved. I did have a lady who came to see me that just moved to Truth Consequences, and her and her husband wanted to volunteer for any type of activities that they could get involved in. So they are going to follow up and come and see me, and hopefully I'm going to give them a list of community organizations that they could get involved in. We do have areas where they could get involved in immediately, where the city at the shelter, at the golf course, and other areas. So that was quite a surprise, but we do get that too. The other person was on the adoption of the parks design. I had also someone that asked me about the watering of the golf course and how that takes place. And I did explain in some areas we are working on the system. In other areas it takes place when the golfers aren't there. We do a lot of watering at night, so we don't take water pressure away from other areas of the city. That's one thing that is being collaborated between parks and the golf course, is a sharing of the water pressure and the effluent water at night. I did have a question on the requirements of the budget also. That was a real simple explanation involving the reserve requirements that we have, the 1/12 that we need to show DFA to start and finish the year with. So those are some of the items that are discussed. In previous meetings, I've gotten requests to place trash receptacles in certain places. Sometimes they've been able to address immediately. In other areas, we have to look at it a little bit closer because of vandalism and things like that. The next thing that I want to report on is, utility billing. There's been comments about we're not reading the meters anymore. Well, we're not reading the meters this month, and that's correct. We had some staffing issues in our utility billing involving some staff leaving and others involving disciplinary action, where it created a shortage. Every utility billing system that's on a computer in the United States is equipped to do estimated billings periodically for different reasons. I know up in the northern states, this happens frequently, where water meters, where they still have to be read manually like ours, are covered in 2 or 3 feet of snow for a while. And you just can't read the meters. So the billings that are going out now and for the next couple of weeks are estimated by the system. That does not mean that if there are issues with the billings that they can't be resolved. They're set in stone. We have demand meters that cannot be estimated, and those are being read. We have variance issues that can still be addressed. If the months that you had high usage and created an estimate that was high, and you believe it was high, you can still come in and get all the issues resolved. There is no difference in our customer service, but the billings are estimated. They should be within 5%, 7% of what they normally are. If they're not, if there's an anomaly, come and see us. But yes, they are estimated, and it's done. The way that the system does it is in a very scientific way, and we can explain that to anybody that makes an explanation. The other thing is, on August the 23rd, we're going to be converting to a new telephone system in all our city offices. Now, it's both an upgrade and it's cost savings. We're not going to pay anything for the initial hardware, and our monthly costs are going to be cut by 40%. In addition to that, we're going to have capabilities that we didn't have before. The main thing that attracted me to follow through with this was the ability to convert from landline to cell phones with an app that can be placed on our cell phones. In the event of an emergency or an outage among the landlines, then we can take office phones and direct them to our cell phones. This is perfect for emergency management, temporary outages, issues in the building. The other issue is that the idea is not to become more automated for convenience. The idea, and in the training, all of our staff will get the message that the idea is for to use the features of this new system to allow callers to get to a person, not to get to a better message, not to get to a better computer, to get to a person. And I'll give you an example. In some offices, they're very busy. There's 3 staff members. The idea will be to have the phone ring at the first number. If there's not an answer, then it not go to voicemail. That it ring at the second number or the third number. But the policy within the office is that on that day, there will be one person responsible to answer that phone before it goes to voicemail. Or if that's not possible, to return that call in a matter of minutes, not days. So we're going to make sure that we're more customer service friendly with this new system. And the idea is not to have a better system with more messages and more dial one for this, and if you know your party's extension, do this. The idea is to get you to a person. So that's how we're going to frame our phone service around this new system. That's going to happen on the 23rd. On that day, we're going to be physically converting these units. So you may experience periods of time, probably around the middle part of the day, where there will be no answer. There may not even be a dial tone, I'm not sure. But on that day, we ask that everyone be patient with us. We'll be posting notices in all our offices to let people know. That's my report for today, Mayor.
Thank you. Attorney Rubin, do you have a report?
No, I do not, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Baca, do you have a report? No report. Mayor Pro Tem Clark, report. You should have a report. You've been gone a
Should
while.
I just make one up?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'll just tell you that, thank you for, once again, everybody for putting up with my absence for a while. And there were medical reasons for it that the mayor is aware of. And I really appreciate you covering for me, Mayor. That's an extraordinary thing to do for somebody.
We're glad you're back, and we're glad you're feeling better. And you're on board
I'm not
for a while.
passing out in the meeting.
That's right, that's right. Thank you.
So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to you, Mayor. It means an awful lot to me. And this guy too. He wasn't too bad.
Oh, too bad.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Heschler.
Yeah, just real quickly, since I saw it on Facebook and it's been on the news, I can let you know, because I usually don't talk about these things, that Boat Night 2 is now at Spaceport America, which is the plane that actually takes the spaceship up to a certain altitude and then drops the spaceship and then launches off into space from there. It's been doing its testings over the last 3 or 4 days. It'll be on site for 2 more weeks. And along with several other, 2 or 3 other planes that are either the Extra, which is a stunt plane that follows it around, and then we have some King Airs that bring staff in from Virgin Galactic throughout the week. So it's been very busy at Spaceport America, and it's nice to see.
Thank you. Congratulations. Commissioner Zaghetti.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Madrid, for...
I'm the city manager. Sorry, Commissioner.
That was your other life.
That's right, yeah, please, I don't want to switch jobs. You've got the tough one there. Thank you, City Manager, for bringing in that new phone system. I mean, one of the big complaints that I've had from people is that they call in and they leave a voicemail message and they may or may not get an answer in reply. And the focusing on getting people in contact with a live person, that's great. There are a couple of things due to the unfortunate outburst during public comment. Didn't get a chance to reply to a couple of other comments. Mr. Smith was asking about the paving on Kruger, and I believe he should have gotten an answer on that. Yeah, back at the time we were working on a project, and the intent was to pave that whole extent of Kruger. And I don't know personally what happened, but apparently there was not enough money to complete that project. And then since that time, the new projects that have come up have focused on other areas, and they're listed on that ICIP list. But I think we really should look at, since we had said we wanted to do that whole project, we probably should look at seeing if we can get back and finish that up, because I believe it was our intent to do that at one time. And he brings up a point that, you know, since it's paved, that people have sped up on the paved road section, and then they, you know, and that brings back the same point that Mr. Underwood brought up, is people speeding on Main Street as well as Broadway, you know, and Silver Street and other places. People like to drive, some people like to drive fast. And if we have issues, I know the chief is aware of the issues we have on Main and Broadway, and especially Main and Broadway, the state police also patrol those areas as well. You know, our officers can only be in so many places at once. But if we have issues outside of that, where, you know, there are speeding issues, I would urge people to get in contact with the police department, let them know there is an issue there, and, you know, if they can direct resources to kind of spot check that area, you know. Okay. Well, you know, I guess that's all.
All right, thank you, sir. I would just like to remind everyone that our next commission meeting will be on Tuesday, August 27th, because we have our municipal league conference in Las Cruces. So instead of having it on Wednesday, we'll have it a day early. It'll be Tuesday. There will be no public comment, but again, Manager Madrid is here at the office in the chambers, available to visit with anyone wishing to talk to him starting at 6 o'clock. And I just kind of want to mention to Chief Aragon, if your officers, when they're out and about, could kind of watch parked cars and make sure that there's no little animals and no little people in them. You know, it is hot, and it's expected to get a lot warmer in the next month. And I've seen people that carry their little dogs to the grocery store, and, you know, they don't take them in, they leave them in the car. So that's a no-no. Please, if you have to take your dog, make sure your dog is with you, or you're at all times. Do not leave it in the car. Leave it at home. It's much safer at home. Okay? That's all I have. Thank you. The next thing is we are adjourned.
You're not even
Have a great day.
asking for-
I'm not even asking. I'm just going to adjourn this meeting.
I have Kathy and Mr. Madrid, before you leave, I have things to sign. Oh, give me a signature card. Commissioner.
I did have a quick question. I was asked about the convention center tax.
Yes.
Okay. And
Thank you, ma'am.
that it was supposed to be directed for a
Good job.
particular use at one time. And it was asked, where is that money?